By some miracle of the internet gods, I got connected. I've had the strangest internet problem today. So right at 3:30, MediaCom connected me. So let's hope it holds. I hope everyone is doing well. Let's see. I see Joel and Sue and Diane. And I see Andrew. Andrew's just hopping on. So bear with me a minute here. I'm going to pull up the agenda. I see it's on the screen, but hold on just a second. As I say, if I seem frazzled, it's because I am. I just got the internet connected. So bear with me. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is the May 24th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. On our agenda today, the consent agenda consists of minutes from the April 22nd, 2022 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, minutes of the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Committee meeting, minutes of the May 10th, 2022 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, financial statements, list of payments for April 2022, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and the scheduling of our next meeting date for June 28, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
In a second?
Second.
In a second. And Ted or anyone have any comments about this?
Graham, I would offer just one thing, and that is that there is a CEO approved expenditure of more than 20,000 this month, which there rarely is. And this one relates to the emergency feeder main repair that we had to do on Northeast 14th Street after a contractor bored into the pipe. And that is $55,000 worth of pipe materials that we bought from Thompson Pipe Group.
All right. All right. Any other comments? Or go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So when a contractor does that, who pays for it? Is there reimbursement or is there any liability for doing that?
There is, Diane, there's liability, and typically that would be the contractor's full responsibility. In this case, the contractor is disputing a little bit the utility locates that we did on that water main. We don't think that the utility locates had anything to do with the fact that they hit it. The locates were off a little bit horizontally, but they didn't hit it. You know, they weren't putting in a pole. They were augering under the street, and they hit the bottom of the pipe as they were augering under, and they'd have hit it no matter where the mark was. So we're working that out with them as we speak.
And Ted, this is John Landy. You've been in touch with us about that. So Diane, I think we'll work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I think you're back now, Graham.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I having internet issues? Hearing no other comments, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Brennan,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. So that moves us to our public comment period, a period of time when we ask if there's anyone here from the public to speak. We also put in a little time here at the beginning of our meeting to talk about regional governance. So Ted, why don't you give a regional governance update, and then we'll see if there's any member of the public here to talk about that or any other item.
Sure, Graham, happy to do that. we have a handful of updates from last month. I think the board is aware because we had a conflict waiver from our bond counsel that we have requested bond counsel review of the 28E agreement that Dickinson has drafted. And they did receive all the conflict waivers that they needed. And in fact, early this week, late last week, we had word from bond counsel, the Allers firm, that 2 independent attorneys at the firm had completed their individual reviews. And so this week, they are going to be comparing notes internally. And then hopefully next week, we will get comments from Allers related to bonding and financing and funding as it's outlined in the 28E. So that's something to look forward to here in the next week or so. We also got word this week that West Des Moines and Urbandale have received some comments from the firm that they had reviewing the 28E agreement for them. Now, of course, they need to review those and they need to discuss that with their counsel, but we are headed towards hearing comments from them on the 28E agreement by the end of the month. And we're hopeful that we're about a week out from the end of the month here. We're hopeful that we will meet that deadline and we will get some comments from West Des Moines and Urbandale. Those should be some of the more detailed comments that we receive in all likelihood. We're also working specifically with West Des Moines and Urbandale to schedule a meeting to discuss the budget process and the timeline, the schedule that's been laid out in the 28E agreement. As a starting point, we've gotten some feedback from other communities who've reviewed the document that the timing laid out in the 28E in terms of when rates would be set and when they would become aware of what the new rate would be doesn't jive exactly with their budget process. And so we're planning to get together with representatives from Urbandale and West Des Moines and probably PFM, the financial firm that most of the communities use in their rate setting process, and sort of storyboard and work through that and get something updated in the agreement. We're also in the last week, Rick Malm and I have been revisiting the operating agreement. That is the agreement that would exist between Central Iowa Waterworks and Des Moines Waterworks as a producer. There would be similar agreements between Central Iowa and West Des Moines and Central Iowa and any other producer. We had put together a draft. We shared it some time ago. We got some comments. I've been able to share that with staff a month or two ago, and they provided some comments. And so Rick and I were able to get back together on that last week, and he's got that on his list now. Then probably the most current news is that tomorrow we will be sharing our Saylorville expansion presentation with all of the metro communities to help them understand the work that we've done there and hear the recommendation on expanding capacity in addition to the cost, the projected cost, and then we'll begin the discussion of how that expanded capacity will be allocated to the various members, how it'll be funded and who will fund it and how that will be paid for. So a lot of things going on right now, Graham, all kind of on parallel paths.
Sue, you have your hand up.
Oh, thank you, Graham. Under this topic, I was trying to think of where would be a good time to make the board aware of this, and I think this would be a good one. This board was so supportive and enthusiastic about the idea of having water and regionalization and water quality issues as part of the partnership legislative agenda. We took it a step further, and I think Andrea and I know Joel and Graham all reached out to some of the leadership saying, we think this is a pretty monumental thing when it comes to what's happening in the region, and we'd like to share it with our federal delegation. As a result, Ted was the speaker for one of 5 featured priorities on Thursday afternoon at the partnership. And we also had Scott Brennan, who is the chair for West Des Moines Waterworks, in on the meeting, and Christina Murphy. And it was so well received, and Ted did a fantastic job. And I kept hearing from different leaders that were on the trip throughout the second half of that week, just saying, oh my gosh, I have learned so much from Ted, or I had a chance to talk to Ted. So I just wanted the board to know, I think you did the right thing in encouraging Ted to go. And the presentation was just so well done. So thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, that's a nice update. Ted, I had a question about the operating agreement. You mentioned the operating agreement and the timing of that. And we talked today a little bit about, John and Rick are working on whether the operating agreement is a part of
I can share that Graham and I and Andrea all visited a little bit today about whether the operating agreement would be a standalone agreement.
said is when do you think our board will look at the operating agreement?
That's a good question. We haven't talked about that. My thought process on that, Graham, and I'm going to think out loud here a little bit, but as Rick and I have talked about it, we wanted to get a draft of that together by the end of the month that we could then share with the other potential operators for comment. I had not included a pass by the board on the operating agreement in that thought process, but maybe that's something that would be appropriate to share with the board at some point here, maybe at planning, before we shared it with the rest of the communities.
Okay.
But I hadn't thought, is that where you're thinking?
I didn't really have a thought. I was just curious about the process. So I get back to us when you think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I'll talk to Rick about that a little bit, and John, and see. This is a little bit a different breed of cat because it will only exist between a handful of the participants. But a good question. Thank you for raising it, and I'll bring back some thoughts on that.
Excellent. Are there any comments or questions from the board about regional governance?
This
Yes.
is Diane. Ted, can you refresh us as to which communities have filed or passed a resolution and which have not?
I can, Diane. All of the communities who are wholesale customers of Des Moines Waterworks have passed a resolution, with the exception of Warren Rural Water, who has indicated they do not intend to participate in regional governance, and Polk City, who had an item on their board agenda or their council agenda last night, but I have not yet heard. I don't know, Amy, if you have heard anything from Polk City about whether or not they passed the resolution last night.
I haven't heard today with any certainty, but the city administrator expected it to pass.
Right. So if it did, all the wholesale customers except Warren Water, and then add to that list, the city of Grimes has also passed a resolution of participation. And I think I've shared with the board, but in case I haven't, the Polk County supervisors also, although they will not be a participant in the negotiation or a signer, they have also passed a resolution in support of regional water. And so pretty broad base of support there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the board on regional governance? Michelle, is there anyone here from the public that wishes to address the board?
No, sir, I am here alone.
All right. So moving on, this moves us into our action items, starting with action item 3A, Des Moines Waterworks Rules and Regulations Update. This is credit card convenience fees. Ted, maybe I'll have you explain this to us and then I'll seek a motion.
Thank you, Graham. As the board is aware, we do an annual update to our rules and regulations. We usually bring that to the board in around November for implementation at the first of the year, which we did this year as normal, or this most recent year as normal. But this is a change that has come to us from our credit card vendor, change in the credit card convenience fees going from $2.75 to $2.95. And we thought it appropriate to bring that to the board as a single item. We would like to change that fee in a commensurate amount so that we will pass that additional 20 cents on to customers who choose to use credit cards to pay their bill in these certain ways. We think that's appropriate because we do continue to offer no-cost options for customers, as stated in the memo, including payment by electronic check and monthly automated payment by checking or savings account. And so we feel that given there are no cost options, it is appropriate to pass the convenience fees for choosing to use a credit card on to the customers. And that's the gist of it, Graham. We'd like to make that one change in the rules and regs that would be effective as of July 1.
So what I'm seeking is a motion to approve the proposed revision to credit card processing fees in the rules and regulations with an implementation date of July 1st, 2022, and direct publication of the changes as required by statute. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on item 3A? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes,
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
great. Moves us to item 3B, acceptance of the 2021 Des Moines Water Replacement Contract 1, East Pleasant View Drive and East 17th Street. Ted?
Graham, this is a project that the board may remember because we not only awarded it in March of 2021, but last year we also brought a significant change order to the board because we were having some problems with the backfill material not passing and had to literally remove all the backfill and replace it with more suitable material. That created a lot of challenges for the neighborhood. It drug the timeline of the contract out for weeks or maybe even months longer than it should have taken. This was a really difficult project for our engineering folks, but we've gotten through it. We did have to do some additional negotiation with the contractor kind of after the fact to get the project closed out, but we have gotten to that point. In addition to the $100,000 change order for the unsuitable material that had to be removed and replaced, there were a number of other change orders that we can go through in whatever detail you'd like, but ultimately we ended up with a fairly significant number of change orders on the job, totaling just over $300,000, which is an 18% increase in the ultimate final cost of the project. A number of reasons for that, but the bottom line is the engineering staff has carefully went through all of the additional costs and come to this conclusion that the change orders are justified and appropriate to pay to close out the project. So today we're asking the board to accept 2021 Water Main Replacement Contract 1 with Synergy Contracting.
So I'm seeking a motion to accept 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1, East Pleasant View Drive and East 17th Street completed by Synergy Contracting LLC in the amount of $2,137,906.76. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? And I have a second. Any comments or questions about this painful project? Right, Ted?
I would agree with the painful part, Graham, yes.
All right, hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes,
Muns.
yes,
Great. So this moves us to item 3C, request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute Fifth Amendment to the 2020 Fluor Drive Median Maintenance Agreement. Ted?
Graham, this is the agreement that we have with I'll Do It LLC to do the planting and the watering of the median planters along Fluor Drive. And we executed an agreement in January of 2020 for I'll Do It to do that work. And then largely because of the Fluor Drive construction and medians being removed from service for the year and then re-added, we've been amending this contract so that it's each year it's appropriate for the number of medians that are going to be planted and maintained for that year. So you can kind of see that we've went through and done some extensions and modifications of this project as we went through. Now, most recently, I'll Do It came to us with a total cost for 2022 that was going to be in excess of $100,000. And we needed to bring that to the board because of the total amount with the medians that are being added back in for this year. And so in an attempt to get them started and allow them to remove the tulips and plant the spring flowers on a timely basis, we did do a Fourth Amendment with them for just spring cleanup and planting for this year. So you will note that the medians have been cleaned up and the plantings have taken place and everything is good to go. We're here today to ask for permission for the board to issue this or execute this Fifth Amendment, which basically adds to that spring cleanup amendment that we executed with them as staff, adds to that the rest of the care and maintenance for this whole year, including, removing the summer flowers and planting the fall flowers, removing the fall flowers and planting the tulips. That will take the book of business for this year up over $100,000 to $112,210. And so that's why we're here today, is to get permission from the board to execute that Fifth Amendment, which will result in a total cost for this year of just over $112,000.
So I'm seeking a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute the Fifth Amendment to the independent contractor agreement to authorize completion of the remaining tasks for the 2022 Fluor Drive median maintenance and increases the total cost from $51,100 to $112,210. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
In a second?
second,
And a motion, a second. Any comments or questions about the 2022 Fluor Drive median maintenance and the increases? All right, hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard. I didn't hear you.
yes.
Thank you. Muns.
yes,
All right, it moves us to item 3D, and I always have trouble with this word, but I'm going to go through it. It's the asphaltic, oh, I did it, concrete surface patch contract 2022-2023. Ted, you want to explain this one?
Absolutely, Graham. Every year we issue a contract for a contractor to come and do the asphalt patching on the holes that we open up in city streets for various maintenance purposes. Some main breaks, some valve replacements, some fire hydrant replacements, whatever maintenance we do in the city streets, occasionally a driveway or a parking lot, but typically city streets that require asphalt patching. This year, you can see we received 4 bids. And the low bid was from Spec USA, the amount of $253,600, and we're asking for permission to award the contract for placing asphaltic concrete surface patches to Spec USA.
So I'm looking for a motion to award the asphaltic concrete surface patch contract for 2022-2023 to Spec USA in the amount of $253,600. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any comments or questions on this item?
I have a question, just that's the price increase on asphalt from last year.
Yeah, 212,000 to 253,000.
Wow.
Yeah, there's one subtle thing in there, Diane, that we've used Hill Brothers
Mhm.
quite a little bit in recent years. They've done a lot of the work, but we had a little bit of a conversation with them last year about the way they were doing some of the work. And it specifically relates to who removes the temporary concrete caps that are part of our winter patches. And we expected them to do it, and they thought that we should do it. And so that $212,000 bid, I believe, and unfortunately Jenny's not here today, but my understanding is that 212,000 bid was based on their belief that we were going to do some of the work that the contract clearly required them to do. And so you can see that their price is $344,000 this year was their bid. But I think that might have been a little bit lower than it would have been had they had a clearer understanding of what we were going to expect them to do. But there's definitely also an increase in material and labor costs reflected here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ted, I have a question not directly related to pricing or this contract, but to this type of work more generally. And I may show my ignorance when it comes to paving materials. But when we are contracting to patch, in a road, I assume we match materials. I mean, if it's an asphalt road, we're patching with asphalt and concrete with concrete. Is that the case?
That's typically the case, Joel. Most of the roads that we work with are not full depth asphalt. I think that would be fairly unusual. But what we see is that they've overlaid them with asphalt at some point in their life to extend their life. And so in cases like that, that's the typical thing. We're cutting through a street that has an asphalt surface over something underneath of it. Usually it's concrete, but sometimes it's brick underneath the asphalt. In those cases, we will pour the concrete back and leave it 2 inches low. And then this contractor just simply comes in and overlays that 2 inches of asphalt on top of the concrete that our crews poured, 2 days before. So most of this asphalt is asphalt overlay that's being placed over concrete that was already, poured by our crew shortly before. Kyle or Mike, could you add any detail to that? Did I get any of that wrong in terms of rarely seeing a full depth asphalt patch?
And that largely answers my question. They're free to add any context if they want. I just, I think I understand the frustration some drivers have when you drive around and see kind of the mixing of materials where things have been patched poorly and it contributes to potholes and whatnot.
Right.
Your answer indicates to me that we're taking the right steps to repair roads correctly to not contribute to that.
Yeah, the city's expectation and the county and the state for that matter is that we will replace like with like, and we do. And so if it's full depth concrete or if it's concrete surface, we'll just put a finished concrete surface there. When it's asphalt overlaid, we'll patch it back with asphalt on top of concrete.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Ted, along those lines, if a customer has their line replaced and a Torgerson or somebody comes in and replaces that line and has to cut into the street, this is not this contract, right? That's a separate contract to come in and repair the street.
That's right. We actually have a contract with Torgerson to handle repairs that are not covered by home serve. And even when Torgerson does work for us on our own contract, this contractor does not do the asphalt.
I hear you.
Torgerson has to have their own concrete and asphalt contractor. And of course, when they are working for home serve, they have to also have their own. This is just for our work when we do a water main break or a valve replacement or some sort of work in the street.
Because Joel, to your point, is what made me think of it. My neighbor had their water line replaced, and Torgerson did the work. And initially, they put a concrete patch in the asphalt street, and that broke up. And about 2 weeks later, they had to come back and put asphalt down. But that's why I asked the question. It wasn't us or our contract. That was Torgerson and their contractor, correct, Ted?
Yes, that would be correct.
Any other comments on this item 3D? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item 3E, we move from asphalt to concrete. This is the concrete contract 2022-2023. I doubt that it's a coincidence, or that's just not a coincidence. Go ahead, Ted.
You are right. It's not a coincidence. This one is a little different though, in that we're just purchasing the material and our folks are placing it. The asphalt, we purchase the service of placing the material in addition to purchasing the material. So this is concrete material. Again, this year, CTI Ready Mix is the low bidder. You can see the difference between last year and this year, 255 to 269. That's not an unreasonable increase compared to a lot of the other increases that we are seeing in things like chemicals and construction costs. I will point out that we continue to work with the city to bring their batch truck on site. Their batch truck is a truck that can literally mix small quantities of concrete on demand instead of, it carries the cement powder and the aggregate and the water, and then it just mixes them as you need them. That has been a real benefit to us for many years. And I remember when I was in water distribution, Sue had mentioned communicating with the city, and that was one of the things that came out of that communication with the city, and it served us well. We continue to do that for the very small pours, but for the larger pours, we need to get a ready mix concrete company to bring us the material, and that's what we're seeking approval to do here, is award the contract for this coming construction season to CTI Ready Mix.
I'm looking for a motion to award the 2022-2023 concrete contract to CTI Ready Mix in the amount of $269,050. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on item 3E?
Okay, I'll ask the obvious question which is why do we do our own concrete and not asphalt?
Yeah, the answer there really is that we've tried hiring contractors to do our concrete work, and it's enormously expensive. Our asphalt work is fairly straightforward. It's fairly simple. It's usually overlaying an existing what we call a down patch with just a couple of inches of asphalt. The concrete work, we have enough of it, and it's specialized work. I mean, we have concrete workers. We have enough of that work to keep them busy. And we can do it more cost effectively than we can hire it out. And that's really the bottom line is it's cost effective for us to do our own concrete work. It's not cost effective for us to do our own asphalt.
Good question. Anybody else have a question or comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashbrenner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Are we,
Sue,
Sue, are you with us?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to hit my space bar and it's not working. So yes, was my vote.
thank you. Munns,
Yes.
Sue, I figured you were just distracted by the baby in the background.
You know, I would love to be holding that baby.
I know.
She's doing a traveling tour of all meetings in person today, so we missed your chance.
So that moves us to item 3F, which is the award of the 2022 water main replacement contract. And this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing to see if there are any comments from the public regarding the form of contract, plans and specifications and the estimated cost. Are there any public comments, Ted, or is there anyone here to speak to this issue?
Graham, we have received no public comments on this item.
All right, I'm seeing no one here to speak in this issue. I'll close the public hearing and seek a motion for the adoption of the form of contract, plans and specifications and estimated costs. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion and a second,
Second.
and a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashbrenner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard, Munns.
Yes.
All right, and with that, Ted will move into the analysis of the bids received.
Graham, we got 3 bids on this project. As you can see, they're all fairly closely bunched, right around $1 million. One of them was 989,000, 1.2 and 1.2, so good bids. One thing I will point out is that this project, the bids were higher than we anticipated they would be. The engineer's estimate for the project was 548,000. We're almost double that with the low bid, but we've done quite a little bit of evaluation and analysis. When you dissect the project a little bit, they're just 2 streets. One is Water Street and one is Northeast 22nd Street. And our estimate on Northeast 22nd Street was reasonably close to the bids, but on Water Street, we were significantly under. And our consensus conclusion here internally and in visiting contractors is just that we somewhat underestimated the degree of difficulty that the contractors placed on the work on Water Street. And this is Water Street between MLK and Court Avenue. The board may recall that we had a significant main break there where we had a claim. It's a really congested right of way. The contractors all viewed that as more difficult construction, frankly, than we did. So given that, the analysis that we've done, the fact that the 3 bids are closely bunched there around $1 million, staff has determined that is an appropriate price to pay for the work in the current climate. And we're going to go ahead and recommend that the board award this contract to J&K Contracting in that amount of nearly $1 million, but happy to answer any questions that anybody might have or work with Michael to answer any questions.
Okay, so I'm seeking a motion to award the 2022 water main replacement contract to J&K Contracting LLC in the amount of $989,145 and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
I have a second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so this moves us to item 3G, Gallery Valve Chamber Structures Reconstruction Phase 2. This is also a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing to see if there are any comments from the public regarding the form of contract, plans and specifications, and estimated cost. Is there anyone here, or Ted, have we received any comments from the public?
We have not received any comments, Graham.
All right, and seeing no one here to speak on this issue, I'll close the public hearing and I'll seek a motion for adoption of the form of contract, plans and specifications, and estimated cost. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? And I have a second.
Second.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments or questions about the motion? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
All right, and Ted, I guess this is analysis of the bids received.
Yes, Graham. Again, on this project, we received 3 bids. You can see there is quite a bit of variability in the bids, all the way from below 400,000 or 500 to over 800,000. You'll recall that we did a number of the gallery valve manholes. We reconstructed them last year, and Don Staley in our engineering group was the designer there. I think as you drive through the park, I'm sure you'll notice that significant improvement in the aesthetic there, which is equaled or exceeded by the improvement in the structural integrity of those vaults on that incredibly important infrastructure, which is our infiltration gallery. We did try to extend that contract with the contractor, Synergy Contracting, who was doing a great job, but we couldn't come together on the price. And so we did, instead of extending it to the rest of the manholes, we rebid, and we did get a good bid here from Nate Todd Construction. And Nate Todd has done a lot of work for us here at the Fluid Drive Treatment Plant, specifically, primarily restoration work, concrete restoration. You know, we have some facilities that are of an age, and we're constantly reinvesting in those facilities, and Nate and his folks do great work. So we have every reason to believe that they can do the job for the price bid, and we would recommend that the board award the contract to Nate Todd Construction.
So I'm seeking a motion to award the Gallery Valve Chamber Structures Reconstruction Phase 2 contract to Nate Todd Construction LLC in the amount of $498,750, and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any comments or questions on item 3G? All right, hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, that brings us to our final action item, which is the request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement with I'll Do It LLC for turf maintenance services, remote facilities. Ted?
Yeah, Graham, thank you. And the board will recall that we brought this item to the board last month, and we actually awarded this contract to Beautiful Lawns by Long last month. But subsequent to that award, Beautiful Lawns withdrew their bid and indicated that they would not be able to perform the work. So we actually went to the second low bidder, but the second low bidder also indicated that they would no longer be able to perform the work. Primarily, we're looking at staffing issues here. These small companies are having trouble attracting and retaining the amount of staff that they need to do the work. So that brought us to I'll Do It, who is the current contractor who's doing our mowing. They're also doing the Fluor Drive median maintenance, and they've done a great job for us, and we would be happy to have them do the work again. And given that the other two contractors are unable to do the work, frankly, I think we appreciate the fact that they recognized that before we got deep into the mowing season and the grass got too tall and we had problems. But so we're back to the board asking the board to authorize execution of an agreement with I'll Do It for turf maintenance facilities at our remote facilities for 2022.
All right, so I'm seeking a motion to authorize staff to execute an agreement with I'll Do It LLC in the amount of $55,472 for turf maintenance services remote facilities. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Second.
And a second. Excellent. Any comments or questions about item 3H?
I have a question as to why we bid all these things separately. Would we get a bigger firm if we bundled them, or what's the thinking on doing that?
When you say separately, Diane, are you talking specifically about the turf and the island maintenance?
Yeah, and didn't you say the mowing at the park was also?
The mowing in the park, Waterworks Park, we have historically, we tried having a contractor do that, but we ultimately determined that we can do that more cost effectively with our staff. We can deploy larger equipment than they can haul around easily. And so we brought the park mowing back into internal service, and we are doing the park mowing.
Oh, all right. I must have misunderstood then. We only have one contract with I'll Do It.
We have this one, and we have the one for Fluor Drive median maintenance, the plantings on Fluor Drive.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I thought there was another one too.
No, just one mowing and one median maintenance. And while there might be an argument to combine those, we do tend to get different types of contractors bidding on
Sure.
those. And so we've chosen
Sure.
to keep them separate.
All right, any other comments or questions on this item, 3H? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our action items. So we'll move into board and committee reports, and we'll start with the planning committee. Andrea?
Yeah, I'm gonna make this quick, and I think it's easy to do that since we were all at the Botanical Center at the beginning of the month to celebrate that acknowledgement and enjoy each other's company. So I will also add that we did have a discussion about the maintenance shed and the plans for the new facility, and answered questions about what's going to happen to our old facility. I don't know if anybody has anything else that they want to share other than a big thank you to everyone that helped to organize that event at the Botanical Garden earlier this month.
Excellent. And Ted and Andrea, you'll let us know whether there's a planning committee meeting in June?
We will let you know, Graham. We certainly are intending to have a meeting, but I know that Andrea won't be available, so we'll just have to coordinate that with the rest of the board.
Okay, thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Joel?
Yes, we had a really interesting and important presentation from the various firms we work with for government relations. And they talked about our utilities seeking of federal funding and state funding, and some of the challenges we're facing there and some of the solutions they're working on. It even gained some media attention. I think the Register had a story about it. I'm not doing a very good job of summarizing this. I don't know, Ted, any highlights from that you would point to?
You know, I think that the highlight is that everyone, including congressional delegation, the Des Moines Register reporter, everyone's surprised to hear that the largest water utility in the state of Iowa did not receive any infrastructure funds at all. And so I think we're getting that message out. We're making it clear that, you know, we're an independent municipal utility, which excluded us from the funding. And I hope that we're creating awareness so that there can be a pathway if and when there are additional infrastructure funds. But I think that's the highlight, Joel.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to use the Bill Stowe moment to talk a little bit about the education hub, and I'm going to kick it to Andrea if she's got a cooperative baby. But there are many players that are interested in this kind of education hub concept that we've talked about for a couple of months now. And Andrea facilitated a meeting yesterday of kind of the interested partners. And I don't know if you're in a position where you can talk about this, Andrea. If not, I can take it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly appreciate anything else you would like to add, but you know, we had a meeting yesterday with folks from Graham with the Stowe Foundation and the utility, the Park Foundation, Ike's, Polk County Conservation, and Lakeside Lab. I also threw in my coworker who works on water quality issues as well at the foundation, just to kind of really chart out our next steps forward with the educational hub, how the interns will be used over the next 8 weeks to kind of do the legwork to identify our strengths, our gaps, and how we may all as partners work together. But I think one of the important pieces that was pulled out of that yesterday, or at least that I took away, was really that, this work, it has to be done among us to figure out how we are all going to work together to accomplish this goal, but of an education hub, but that there's a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum, and a lot of passion to see this happen, and that we're all to some, in one way or another, willing to put some sort of resources to that, whether it's our thoughts, or in some cases, facilities or funding. And so that it also, I think, is a testimony to how much people are interested in seeing this kind of continue to move forward. I guess, yeah, Graham, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, that's great, Andrea. And I think the only thing I'll add to that, is we, began talking about doing something with Bill Stowe in mind, and the Park Foundation has moved forward, and this idea of the education hub together started to come to the surface. I think what yesterday's meeting, I walked out of feeling very good about. I mean, one thing I think Diane and Sue have said, time and time again, is that we properly coordinate with others who are in this space and doing things in the park, and that, Des Moines Waterworks is focused on our mission, and we protect our ratepayers in the interest of the park. And I think what's going to come out of this is, better coordination of what we're doing, protecting the interest of Des Moines Waterworks and our mission, but bringing in these other players that are more able to work in that space, and albeit they may do it at Waterworks Park. So I felt very good about yesterday's meeting, that things are moving in a collaborative direction that's going to involve a lot of people, and some real exciting things could happen. So I appreciate Andrea kind of pulling this together, and the next meeting is going to happen rather quickly on June 6th. And we'll see what happens the next few weeks and months. All right. So with that, I don't have much to add in the Botanical Garden. I too appreciated everybody being there. I thought that was a nice event, and I thought Waterworks was recognized appropriately in the place where the plaque was, and I thought it was a very nice event.
Hey, Graham,
Yes.
I know you have said that the Gillettes would be happy to host a holiday get together for us. What it occurred to me while we were sitting there is we never have a time to really socialize together.
Right.
And it was so nice and so well done. So again, like everyone has said, kudos. And Andrea said it best. It was just so nice to just talk to people about what's going on in their lives. And I know legal counsel's probably, having a spaz right now, worried about how we could do that. But I do hope there are times that we can get together. We spend so much time together in committee meetings, and yet, there's some really cool things going on with new babies on the board and grandchildren and deployments. And it would be nice to be able to have that a couple times a year.
Well, I agree with that. And if we can continue moving away from COVID in the months ahead, Ted and I had to move into COVID, but if we can move away from COVID, we can have a publicly noticed holiday party this year that we will host. So we will have at least that opportunity in December.
Outstanding.
I would just add that social gatherings are permissible as long as there's no discussion of policy or action taken by the board. So if it is a purely social gathering, that would be fine.
See, even John Landy has fun.
Hard to believe.
The Iowa Code,
that
the Iowa
case, we
Code
should-
allows for fun.
Attorneys are nothing but fun.
There you go. Anything else to add, Joel or Andrea from the Park Foundation?
I'll just add that the Park Foundation, continues to look at how they close the gap and finish off this first phase. And one of the things that was discussed at this last meeting is the hiring of Terry Tibak Horst. I'm probably saying her last name wrong. Who is, I guess I would say, well known in the consulting sphere of fundraising and development. And so there's hope that the possibility of working with her and kind of getting the Park Foundation across the finish line and able to open themselves up to what's next. Joel, do you have anything else to add there?
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. I thought that was the most significant aspect of this month's meeting. And Terry is a recent addition to the park board, and there's some discussion about whether she can remain a board member and a consultant for the Park Foundation. And so I think those discussions are ongoing.
Excellent. I'll just add one thing about the Park Foundation. I think, going back to our meeting yesterday, we had interested parties in the education hub. The Park Foundation's participation in that is very helpful. And the one party I'm not sure you mentioned that was there yesterday was Pat Bodie. Also attended for multiple reasons, but one with her work with ICON, which is also an important player in this.
Yes, I did forget about that. Thank you.
Yep. So that's important to note. All right. So with that, we'll go to staff updates and we'll go to the urban deer hunt update. I've been wondering about this.
Yeah, Graham, I'm going to hand it off to Jessica very quickly. But as you said, you've been wondering, I think we promised that we would bring back to the board an update of how the hunt went in Waterworks Park this year. And Jessica is going to provide that update for us, Jess.
Can everybody see the screen okay? All
Yep.
right.
Looking good.
So the 21-22 hunt, it ran from October 1st to January 30th. We had 11 hunters participate. And the park was divided into 5 different zones. So you can see the map to the right kind of shows where we had the zones located. Some of the zones were bigger, so there were multiple hunters in those zones. Some had single hunters, like zone 5 and 1 were very small. A total of 33 deer were harvested. We had 30 does and 3 button bucks. And for the total Polk County controlled hunt, they had 333 deer harvested. So their numbers were pretty average. They were down just slightly from previous years, but pretty close to their average harvest for the year. We had no issues from the public or issues with hunters. The total urban hunt had no safety concerns and no safety issues across Polk County. So all in all, it was a very positive hunt. We actually got feedback from one of our neighbors that lives south of Grand. He was very gracious that we added the hunt. He noticed a significant reduction of deer in his yard. In previous years, he'd had quite a bit, so he was very happy to see that he only saw a few, if any, and had less destruction to his landscape. This is a graph. I just wanted to show you each year the Polk County Hunt puts out a yearly summary, and this graph was in it. So I just wanted to put it in perspective that this shows what the deer populations can look like if you don't have a hunt, and they pretty much grow and double almost every 3 to 4 years. We've tentatively set dates for this upcoming hunt. We're looking at the dates of September 17th through January 22nd. And I will note in here, we are going to have some weekends where we are going to pause the hunt for events like the marathon and the Ike's Outdoor Expo, and there's several other events going on. So that'll be noted in our hunt rules when the hunt begins. We are going to expand the hunt into Maffett Reservoir. So we're going to expand on the south end of the reservoir, the heavily wooded area behind the lake there. Because of the amount of deer that were harvested here at Waterworks Park, we had 33, we are allowed buck incentive tags. So just to give a quick explanation of those, depending on how many deer are harvested, the Polk County Task Force allows you so many tags, and they're issued by the DNR. So I was allotted 6 tags. And in order to get a tag, you have to harvest at least 3 deer. So I had multiple hunters. I had 7 out of the 11 that harvested 3 or more deer. So for each 3 deer they harvested, they got their name in once in a pool. And then if they had deer beyond the 3, say they had 4, then their name went in twice, and so on for the number of deer harvested. So I pulled out 6, and they will be notified. So this coming season, they'll be able to harvest a buck if they so choose and have the opportunity to here in the park. Otherwise, the hunt is doe and button buck only, which button bucks, to remind you as well, those are very young bucks. So when you're hunting, it's very hard when they're that young to determine if they're a buck or a doe. So that's why those are allowed in the hunt. They did not do a deer survey this winter due to weather conditions. It just didn't work out right in the winter months. They didn't have enough snowfall when they were planning the hunt. So they are planning to do it this coming winter. So I'm excited to see, what the numbers are going to look like, and I'll have something to share with you hopefully next year after that's taken place. So with that, is there any questions?
Any questions for Jess on this item?
So remind me, this is kind of just like a lottery system as far as who gets to hunt, as long as they meet certain certain criteria.
Yes. So in order to participate in the hunt, they need to go through a hunter's safety course, pass the certification, a bow certification testing, which is done out at Archery Sports out in Altoona. They have to have a valid hunting license, as well as they have to purchase a Zone 48 tag. And that Zone 48 tag allows them to hunt in the urban hunt. So they have to obtain 4 things. And before they qualify for our hunt, I have their whole application reviewed by the local DNR officer.
So has has DNR or anybody ever looked at Waterworks Park as an opportunity to work with like the disabled hunters or certain groups like that, that I believe that, or disabled veteran hunters or something, that are looking for more accessible properties that may also meet those different criterias?
So that's actually a good question, because at our last meeting, they, somebody from a group, let's see if I can remember the name, presented on that, and they're looking for our mentors. But there is a program out there with the state of Iowa, and some of these hunters are veterans, some of them are female, because what was explained to me is not a lot of people hunt anymore, and the ones that are hunting are aging out. And so they're looking for ways to rejuvenate and get more people involved in the urban hunt. And so they are having that program, and it was just discussed and presented at our last Cook County Deer Task Force meeting. So there's more to come on that, but there are opportunities there if we choose to go in that direction, where one of our qualified hunters would be a mentor for that program.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to, you know, sorry, kind of do a double whammy there of not only being able to take care of our deer population, but also being able to, you know, help out, either whether providing access to people who may have limited ability to access sites or things like that. It just seems like a win-win for us if we can play a role in that, if it works out.
Yep.
And Jessica, can you remind us again what happens to the meat from
Yeah.
those deer?
So this last 21-22 hunt, so the hunter can harvest it and take it home for them to consume. Otherwise, there was an opportunity for them to take them to the city of, I think it was the city of Urbandale, had a trailer set up, a cooler basically, where they could drop off the meat if they wanted to. And then it was part of the hush program where the meat was then donated to the needy.
All right. Jessica, I talked to hunters on 2 different occasions on my walks through the park with my dog.
Yeah.
And during the year, that on both times they talked about their dislike for the zones we have in the park. They
Oh,
said
okay.
they talk so much to each other. They basically could self-regulate, that they were not over hunting in a zone. I'm sure I don't have an opinion on this. I'm just relating what I heard. Is this something the hunters had talked to you? I mean, are we sticking with the zones next year like we've had the zones this year?
So I think we can modify them slightly, but I do know, especially in Killdeer, there were 3 hunters back there. And initially they shared stands, they had a text group going. I let them kind of self-regulate, you know, what they were doing. But all in all, I think everybody liked the zones, except for they would really like to expand in some of the more remote areas as you get further west. But some of those, honestly, you have to access by kayak. So they'd have to, you know, get to them, launch their kayak in the river and kayak to them, which is not a problem to me. I just want to make sure that they knew they could not cross the railroad tracks. So we're talking like where some of the mountain bike trails are as you get further west. So we may look at an expansion into those areas, but they have to understand they cannot cross the railroad tracks, as we do not have permission. You have to get special permission for that, as you all know. So.
Well, I enjoyed my conversations with them. They were nice guys, and they enjoyed the opportunity to be there.
And I don't know who you talked to, but it was kind of fun. I got to know some of them very well, and they were very gracious to even be allowed to hunt in the park. So I think they were very respectful.
Yep, I agree with that. Great. Anything else for Jess on the deer hunt? All right, with that, we'll go to Jen Terry and External Affairs.
Thanks, Graham. Our main topic for updating today is Ted's recent trip to DC with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. So I'm going to yield my time to Ted because he was the one that was there. And Ted, while you're at it, you may want to talk at least briefly about today's event in the park if you'd like. So thank you.
I definitely have the event in the park today on my comment list, Jen, and we'll touch on that for sure, because I thought it was a great event. But the DC trip, Sue shared some thoughts about that already, which I appreciate very much, Sue. But a couple of other things that I will offer. You know, I did share that there seems to be this surprise that we didn't receive any any funds. But another interesting point was that Joe Gilson from Senator Grassley's staff made the point that no one else is complaining about not receiving funds. And so if there are indeed a number, there are almost 70 independent municipal utilities in Iowa. And if that's the case, and none of them received funding, how come no one else is complaining? And so we brought that back as a to-do to reach out to those. And I know Jen and the team have already started making a list. We're actually going to get together a little focus group of independent municipal utilities, some of the bigger ones, Oskaloosa and Marshalltown and Council Bluffs and some others, and talk a little bit about it. And we may work with them to send comments to Joe and just make it clear that it is a concern, even if he hadn't heard about it from more folks. We had the opportunity to meet with Grassley's staff and Senator Ernst's staff, thank them for some of the things that they've done for us already, and just kind of reinforce some of the challenges that we're having with infrastructure funding, PFAS and lead service lines. In addition to personally having the opportunity to talk to just a lot of people who are involved in our regional governance initiative here. So I thought it was very valuable. It was my first trip, as you all know, but something I would certainly consider doing again. And I don't know, Sue, if there's anything else you would add based on your time there, but I thought it was a good experience.
I thought you did a great job, and I've heard nothing but compliments about, that's really nice that Ted was there, and now I understand what's going on. And so I'm glad you found it valuable.
Yeah, it was a good experience, and I got to visit at length with some people who I'd met briefly but didn't know well. So including Jake Anderson, who's the city manager in Grimes, and seems like a great guy. And so that's kind of what I have to offer on that front. If you would allow, Graham, I could move into a couple of quick comments to finish things out here. First of all, I will share that I got a note from Andrea just minutes ago that she had heard that Polk City did pass the resolution of participation. So we're pretty much got everybody through the wickets there, except Warren Water, who is not planning to participate. I will share that the nitrates on the rivers have been bouncing around a little bit as it rains. We had nitrates on the Raccoon as high as 12 milligrams per liter compared to our drinking water standard of 10. We were not in danger of needing to run the facility because the gallery stayed lower. The Raccoon is down around 10 something now. The Des Moines had gotten up to above 10, but is down around 8 something now. So we're keeping a close eye on that, but we're kind of in that spot where every time it rains, we're going to see some nitrates and be above or a little below or high above. But stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date as things develop there. I know Nathan and his folks are watching that on probably an hourly basis, actually. I would comment on the event in the park. We had the opportunity to host a little press event with Landis Cooperative related to the Plots in the Park initiative. This is one of our kind of signature water quality initiatives for the year that really developed out of sort of a relationship with Landis as a trusted ag partner a couple of years ago, as we were communicating with all sorts of groups and individuals across the state about what was going on the water quality front. We had the opportunity to visit with Landis and really developed a connection there. It was clear to us that they shared our goal of seeing water quality improvement and our vision of making that happen through sustainable practices. And we had no idea what we might do with Landis, but fast forward 2 years and we've got what I think is a really cool initiative going on in Waterworks Park, where they're actually planning some demonstration plots. They're going to show how corn and soybeans can be grown adjacent to, in the vicinity of, but without negatively impacting drinking water source and public water supply. So it's a neat concept. We had a lot of interest from the media. Channel 5 was there, WHO Radio was there. Associated Press was there. A couple of other more ag publications were there. I mean, they're really curious. What in the world is Landis doing cooperating with Des Moines Waterworks? So it was a cool event. Graham was there. I know he may have dropped off here because of his internet issues, but Graham was there and he had the opportunity to interact with the Landis board, and they're excited about it. And it was really nice to hear Landis, their general manager, Matt Carson's talking to WHO radio about, hey, this is the right thing to do. And we all know it's the right thing to do and we need to do it. You know, Landis is here to provide the support that farmers need to understand these sustainable farming practices, and we can coexist. And so it was a great event. I'm anxious to see the coverage that comes out of the outlets that were there and see how they spin it, or if they just present it straight up that we're all working together to try to accomplish common goals. So very positive. Thanks to Jen and Rachel and Melissa Walker, who helped kind of put that thing together. Landis had a virtual army of folks out there today. They've got they're about 3 times as big as we are. They have 600 full-time employees and a pretty significant office staff, but we worked cooperatively with them to put this on. And now we'll get to watch these plots grow all summer, and they're going to bring folks through to see these plots and help them understand the practices they're using and how they're getting the yields without excess nutrients in the whole thing. And then with any luck, we'll have access to that audience to tell them our story and help them understand. I took the opportunity to invite the Landis board for a tour of the plant today. Hopefully they'll take us up on that. They're going to give us some space in their new innovation center to educate on what a watershed is and why it matters. And that it's exciting. And it was a neat event, and I think will lead to positive things. And the only other thing I will say is share, I guess, is something that I can't yet share. And that is a couple of cool things we have going on with Landis at their innovation center and at the Des Moines airport. And you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Jen told me I couldn't share it yet because it's not public information yet, but we've got a couple of other cool things related to water quality and watersheds that are going on that I'm anxious to share with the board here a month from now. So stay tuned for that. I think I'll end there, Graham, unless you have any comments you'd like to share about the event today.
No, I thought it was nice, and it was a little rainy, but that's okay. That's all part of the process. I do appreciate Landis's approach to this partnership, and it was nice. They had a number of board members there that I spoke to. They're fascinated by what we do at the park and the gallery system and the learning potential, which just brings us back to the education hub conversation we had yesterday, and the opportunity we have to educate people about water production and agriculture's impact on the environment and how we can do better here in Iowa. So it's a very positive step forward.
Agreed.
So anything else, Ted, for the good of the cause?
I have nothing further today, Graham.
Well, I appreciate it. I got kicked off, but I was on the phone there for most of your comments, so I heard all of it. The internet gods are still toying with me, but I'm back. I appreciate it. Does anybody else have anything before we adjourn today's meeting? Hearing none, we hope to be back in person again next month on June 28th, but we'll see everybody at the next meeting. With that, we'll be adjourned. Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Stay safe.